Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Henrik86, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, theflatearthchannel.com, who's also just become a channel member on Nathan Oakley, so big shout out to you, flatearthchannel.com, for becoming a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Chris Hillman, NA Literalist, Steve ALM, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Missouri Bear, Liam Nedrick, Dank, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, David Rockator Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Felix Hung, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Tina Baker, Alexander Main, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by a couple of people in G+, I believe, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. I thought there was loads of people in I said G+ in the intro, it's actually Discord. But everyone's in the after show. Not that I care.
They're afraid. I talked to them about this all weekend. I kept saying, watch you scurry as soon as it goes live. Like, sunlight is the best disinfectant.
No, Chocolate said it best. They're like little schoolgirls.
That one guy that Ratio Swan last week, I was talking to him all weekend about the Coriolis thing. And he tried to straw man your position every which way. Finally, I pinned him down. I said, tell me what is moving. The field goal, right? Are you moving the goalpost or is the ball moving? And eventually he said both. I go, sure, so they're both moving, right? He's like, yes. Are they both moving exactly the same? Relative? And he's like, yeah. So they're not moving at all then, are they? Right? You can't, there's no possible way to detect their movement if their movement is exactly in sync. And then he kind of came back a little bit later and said that I had a brain injury, threw a couple ad homs, and then we talked it out in voice chat, and he finally said that he finally understands the point flat earthers are making.
Yeah, but ain't that focusing on a projectile and not the observation?
Yeah, Tyson's comment about kicking a field goal at 48 yards and just barely making it by like a third of an inch or something like that.
Yeah, it's Neil deGrasse Tyson's assertion that from the stands, as you watch that field goal just make it through the goal, you're seeing the ball curve and then just make it through the goal. That's what you see from the stands. And he's asserting that the curve that you're observing is a not actual curve. In other words, the ball isn't really curving, it's just travelling straight. But it seems like it's curving from the stands because Earth's rotating underneath the ball, moving the goalposts to bring them in line with the ball so that the field goal can be scored. Well, that's the Earth moving under the ball. And from the stands, it looks like it's curving through the goal. It isn't. According to them, it's Earth rotating underneath the ball. And that would shorten flight times. But Coriolis is, as identified by Neil, the observation of the not actual deflection. So in the Neil deGrasse Tyson example, it's you watching the ball seem, that's not actual, seem to curve. Not actually curving, just seeming to curve because you're rotating with a claim to be rotating Earth moving under the ball. Now, if things that aren't attached to Earth have got Earth rotating under them, that includes aeroplanes and drones and balloons, helicopters, anything that's not attached. And Earth's claimed to be rotating underneath them at a rate of 15 degrees an hour. So Earth's rotating underneath your drone then. for you to observe it seem to drift. Because the observe it seem to drift bit is the Coriolis bit. Now, they always detail the projectile and what it does, and people will get lost in the weeds with that. But their claim is Coriolis, not actual deflection observed from a spinning reference frame. So as soon as they start detailing what the projectile does, it's like, well, that's not Coriolis. Who cares what the projectile's doing? What I see it seem to do, i.e. not actual deflection, that's Coriolis. But what it seems to do is completely irrelevant to what it's actually doing, because the description of Coriolis is what you observe in the form of a not actual deflection. So as soon as you detail the bullet, the plane, the drone, from their perspective, not ours, because the causes of their claim of Coriolis is Earth rotating underneath, and we say, well, if Earth's rotating underneath to give you Coriolis, that would shorten flight times and drones would drift away from you. Because to have the effect, you need the cause of Earth rotating underneath stuff at 15 degrees an hour, which is precisely what they claim it's proving. They just lose you in the weeds of what Coriolis is and isn't by detailing the projectiles, and here in the trenches they detail how the projectile doesn't show drift, how it's keeping up with the Earth's rotation and nonsense like that. But none of that's any relevance to Coriolis, because Coriolis is purely what you will see of something not attached as you're spinning, and that's supposed to be the proof Earth's spinning. They claim Earth delivers you that effect. In the form of this ball, you see the ball seem to curve because Earth's turning underneath it, according to claim of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well, that simply is not the case, because if Earth rotates under a ball to give you Coriolis, it would rotate under a plane to give you Coriolis. You'd look up at the plane and go, look, it seems to curve. It's not really curving, I'm on a spinning ball Earth, according to this claim that we can see it seem to curve because Earth's turning underneath it. And if you're turning underneath the plane, it means the continent it's travelling to is coming towards it at a rate of 15 degrees an hour, and that shortens the flight times. Again, nothing to do with Coriolis, but what would give you Coriolis is Earth turning under the plane. So if Earth turns under the plane to give you Coriolis, it shortens the flight times, and that does not happen. Therefore, Earth does not turn under anything. Earth does not turn. If it did, you would have a Coriolis effect, which is precisely why they claim they do, and lose you in the nonsense of convoluting what Coriolis is and isn't by describing what a projectile does. And it's, like I say, just an observational effect. A sight gag, as QE calls it, because it's a not actual effect. Something travelling straight that seems to curve isn't curving, just seems to because you're rotating. And that's the bit that proves Earth spins. Well, we'd need to rotate underneath aeroplanes then, and we don't.
So, Nathan, how much time would the plane save if the Earth was rotating underneath it?
Less when going west. For example, Charlotte, North Carolina to LA takes approximately 4 hours, and if Earth was rotating underneath at the claimed rotational velocity, 15 degrees an hour, at that particular latitude, the flight would take an hour and a half. Because Earth's rotating underneath, bringing the continent, or bringing LA, towards the plane as it travels towards LA, the plane. But that does not happen. In fact, quite the converse. Flights are often slower, or the flight times are reduced when travelling east. Completely in contravention to what would be the case if you had Coriolis at all. We just don't. They're approximately the same, bearing a bit of tailwind. If you've got a typically easterly tailwind, you're going to get a typically shorter flight east. Now, it should be shorter west if Earth turns underneath to give you this not actual deflection of things that seem to curve from the ground. That's Coriolis effect, by the way. Nothing to do with this plane. But the net cause of the Coriolis deviation is claimed to have on Earth would shorten the flight times. And that doesn't happen. So Earth's not rotating underneath anything.
Good morning.
Hey, 10th man.
Yeah, you even have, I had this conversation yesterday with a member of a family that we know. And they used the LA to Charlotte, North Carolina, from west going east at our latitude, as you said. It's about 860 miles per hour the Earth is supposed to be rotating. I said, how fast is the plane traveling west to east? We agreed on 500 miles per hour once in the air. I said, how could it ever reach its target if the Earth is moving 360 miles faster? I go, so right there, if the Earth is spinning at 860 miles per hour at the latitude of LA to Charlotte, the speed of the Earth would be 860 miles per hour. the speed of the plane, however, is 500 miles per hour. The 360 miles that it doesn't have would never allow it to reach it. So the Earth would have to rotate one full turn. So you have a problem even with the example. So that proves the Earth is not rotating right there. But then if you were in Charlotte, going back to LA, LA's coming at you at 860 miles an hour, but you're going at LA at 500 miles per hour. And that's why it should take an hour and a half instead of 4.5 hours. So all along, the Earth is not moving either direction you want to use.
Precisely. And for us to have an Earth-based Coriolis effect, that must be the case. Earth must turn underneath that flight for me to look up at the flight and go, oh, wouldn't you know it? Coriolis deviation. That plane looks like it's taking a curved trajectory, but in reality it's not. It's actually me turning underneath it. Yeah, that doesn't happen. But it must happen, must have shortened flight times, must have deviation. For there to be deviation, Coriolis is what they're claiming, so we need to see an apparent deviation with Earth rotating underneath stuff. That's what Coriolis is. But that doesn't happen. So all we get is the defence of why it doesn't happen, when it's supposed to be the thing that proves we're spinning. Oh, it doesn't occur because blah, 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 blah. Well, it should occur. It's supposed to be proving Earth spinning. It just doesn't occur, so it isn't proving Earth spinning. In fact, complete the opposite. It's proving we're not spinning, it's proving we're stationary. Because if we weren't, we would have that effect. We would have Coriolis effect if we were spinning, and we do not. The fact that they claim it is like anything else that they put out there as the nonsense for us to have to argue against. Like edges. Where's your edge, Flat Earther? What are you talking about? You've got boats going over your edge, Globe Earther, with your physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. You've got boats going over an edge. But yet you're challenging me to show it with a picture that you've got from the Flat Earth Society, with a boat literally falling off an edge. But that's what happens in your model in literal terms, so you're going to challenge me to prove it. Same with your space violation. You've got a natural law violation in the form of a sky vacuum. So what do? You challenge us to prove a dome. Well, we must have containment, otherwise we wouldn't have gas pressure. But your assertion is the inverse of that, which violates natural law, but yet I'm the one being challenged to prove a dome. And this is no different. We've got Coriolis effect. Now I'm going to spend an eternity getting you to prove how we do have deviation, as I argue as a globe earther why we don't have it, even though it's the claim that proves Earth spins, that we've got it, and we haven't got it. So I'll argue for why we haven't got it indefinitely. But the entire time the globe earther does argue about why we haven't got Coriolis deviation, this not actual deflection at 15 degrees now with Earth turning underneath an aeroplane, while they argue about why we don't have that, i.e. don't have the proof Earth spins, they'll beg the question that it spins. Well, Earth's spinning with the atmosphere, so I'm assuming Earth's spinning, I'm assuming the atmosphere's velcroed to it in violation of how gas behaves. And in these assumptions, we're still talking about Earth being a spinning entity, while we're arguing about how we don't get Coriolis, which is supposed to be the thing that actually proves Earth spinning. It just doesn't happen. And the fact that it doesn't happen debunks that we're moving at all. So they just all beg the question, assume it spins, and argue about how we don't have Coriolis effect, when that's the very thing they should be arguing for. We just don't see it. Earth isn't rotating underneath anything as it must be to have Coriolis effect.
Well said. And that's the problem lies in the foundation of the argument. See, they got a model. They don't have reality. And they're trying to defend their model. Well, you can't defend the model that's being reified into reality. This is why it breaks down, and we have all this chaos with these people. So one thing they got to say is that the Earth is spinning because that's what their model says. But then when you go to prove it, they want to fight why it's not spinning because it's not happening in reality. So come on, wake up, everybody.
It's not part of the rhetoric. This is their own self-delusion.
Wake up.
It's their own self-delusion. So the people who argue for us having Earth and atmosphere travelling as one in violation of gas behaviour, they're deluding themselves. You know, they're coming here arguing against Coriolis effect and telling us Neil deGrasse Tyson's wrong when he details what Coriolis effect is and how it should be effective on Earth. No, that's wrong. No, the atmosphere's travelling along with the ball. Well, what the fuck is he talking about then? Why is Coriolis effect being detailed by Neil deGrasse Tyson to millions of people as the effect that is claimed to be the proof of Earth's spin, with the exact description being a Coriolis effect that he's describing? You're saying that's wrong? Well, the only reason they do that and throw Neil deGrasse Tyson under the bus is because it doesn't actually happen. So they have to argue for why. Why doesn't it happen? Well, if it doesn't happen, we're not proving Earth spins. That's the end of the argument. But they'll argue all day with the begging the question fallacy that it does spin, but we don't get deflection from the ground.
See if I could put it in context here, at least the way I see it. We have 24 hours in a day between day and night to make one full day. We say the sun is moving 15 degrees an hour. Okay. And there's enough of those hours to make a 24-hour day until it's over your head again when you started your time of measuring the movement of the sun in degrees. They're saying, no, the Earth is moving 15 degrees an hour, not the sun. We go around the sun. Oh, okay. Well, if the Earth is moving 15 degrees an hour, then it's got to show Coriolis. Well, we can't show Coriolis, but we're going to argue that it exists because we have to position ourselves that the Earth is moving 15 degrees an hour. Well, if the Earth was moving 15 degrees an hour, then the helicopter could just go up and let the Earth move 15 degrees an hour. But it doesn't. It's over.
Exactly. So the only way around that for the people in the trenches is to delude themselves, argue against Coriolis, the thing that's supposed to prove Earth spins, with a begging the question fallacy that it's spinning anyway, and here's the justification for why we don't see this Coriolis effect that we're supposed to be proving Earth spins. But I'm still assuming it spins, so therefore my argument is valid even though it's not actually proving Earth spins with Coriolis effect, which must happen if it spins. It just doesn't.
Yeah, when I was talking to this person yesterday, I said, let's look outside the window here. We were sitting in our kitchen. So all three of us that were in the conversation looked outside the window. I said, do you sense any motion of the Earth moving 860 miles per hour at this point, 1,039 at the equator? Have you ever felt the Earth turning? And this person said, no. And I said, yeah, but that's what they're telling you. They're telling you that the Earth is spinning right now. But we can all agree that the Earth is not moving, right? And this person said, yeah, it's not moving. At least I don't feel it. I said, great, that's a good start. So why do you buy the globe lie that we're moving, but you can't feel it? Have you ever moved at such speeds and you can't feel anything? I mean, can you feel something at 50 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour? Even if you're in a car with a good set of shocks and good tires, you still feel movement. They go, yeah, you're right.
Or if they're a fundy, they're arguing that position, and we say, yeah, you would feel a train moving at 150 miles an hour. They ignore you and go, no, you wouldn't. Like, I've been on a train doing that speed? Yeah, you do. Been in a car doing that speed? Yeah, you do. Been in a plane? You definitely feel it. You know about it.
Yeah, it's obvious. We've all experienced those. Most people have been on a car, train, and an airplane. I know I have many times.
Yeah.
I've always felt motion.
Yeah, and the last time we had this argument with the fundier from the Globe side, his argument was to say, well, no, you only feel it if there's a speed change or a direction change, if there's a bit of a bump in the road. It's like, okay, well, you've got all these different orbital claim to be begging the question velocities in all these different directions in the heliocentric model. So their address to that is, well, you wouldn't feel them. That's their answer. You'd feel the speed changes in your car. That's the only reason you can feel 150 mile an hour, but whatever it is, 98 million miles an hour or whatever we're supposed to be travelling around the Great Attractor. No, you wouldn't feel that as we change our direction within that particular massive speed, because it's massive, so you wouldn't feel it. Like a vacuum. You have a massive vacuum and suddenly you have to sweep up gas at the end of it. Little vacuum, yeah, it all fills the space. Big vacuum, nah, it all goes down, go boom boom. It's just like, no.
You know what? There's a little insight I want to give from yesterday's talking, what you just said right there. See, the Glober is in the trenches arguing for it to the death, basically, to their last breath. The person I was talking to yesterday, once I gave these real simple facts about if it was moving, it would be this, this, and the other, said, okay, so let's say the Earth is motionless and stationary and flat. Let's just say this. I say, okay, And they go, what difference does it make? I said, aha. Now, see, to you, it's not a big difference because you're willing to accept it because it doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change any part of your foundations that you live life by. But to a baller, and I said this to this person, I said, to a baller who's deep into atheism, who's deep into no God or any kind of accountability at the end of this life, they needed to be this way. They needed to be like by chance. And, when I die, so I'm going to live whatever way I want to live. I go, but the minute you say it's orchestrated, the minute you say it's got a creator who created it, they fight like you know what to deny that in their life. I go, you, because you believe in the creator, it doesn't matter because maybe the creator wanted the ball. Maybe the creator wants it flat. See, to you, it doesn't matter because you love the creator. These people, it proves the creator.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Paul Hall and 10th Man in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nathan, before you start the housekeeping question, can I say one thing real quick?
Go ahead.
I listened to that 2016 debate between Nathan and Rumpus. Oh my God.
You mean
Never
QE?
show himself anymore.
You mean
Yeah, QE and Rumpus. He should never even show his face anymore. That is terrible.
Indeed.
I watched the Vsauce thing. That was pretty funny.
That went out on Sunday, I believe. No, Saturday, in place of Ballbusters. So it was my kid's 4th birthday, so I wasn't available to do Ballbusters. So I think QE opted to run that show instead. So that went out. Yeah, so check it out. It's on Quantum Eraser YouTube channel. Be Here or Be Sphere. Right, let's do some housekeeping. Hey, Arwin. Good timing.
Hello.
Hello. Any signs of a physical,
Good afternoon.
geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Not from Van Nuys Airport.
No.
Okay, as it was discussed in the pre-show, and we've got a picture of a actually deflecting or actual spin direction of a hurricane. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety, as opposed to the hurricane-based variety, which is not Coriolis effect. Tappy tap tap tap.
Is there any evidence?
Earth-based variety?
Earth-based, yeah, Earth-based.
Oh dear.
Is there any evidence that a hurricane wind is moving in a straight line or standing still?
This is a, I think this is, it could be a satellite picture, claimed to be satellite picture. Nevertheless, I'm pretty certain that they move in a cyclonic motion. In other words, it's not not actual deflection observed from the ground because we're spinning underneath this wind, Paul. It's actually got a spin direction. So unless you were part of that spin, watching something on the ground appear to deviate, hurricanes have got sod all to do with not actual deflection of Coriolis. So no, this is definitely not an effect of Coriolis effect. Anybody else? Truth Earth spins? Anybody at all?
Can I just say, like, because, you know, they claim the ring laser gyro, but to put that through the scientific method, you would have to alter the independent value, which is Earth spin.
Yeah, if you want to claim, well, you wouldn't get that far because you can't claim ring laser gyro as a natural phenomena. But yeah, I see what you're saying. If you're going to claim that it's science, which it definitely is, then you'd need to vary your independent variable. If the claim of 15 degrees an hour deviation of a ring laser or optical gyro is being claimed to be Earth turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour as the claimed cause of this non-natural phenomena, then yes, for it to be scientific, you'd need to vary and manipulate that which you assume caused the effect. In this case, Earth turning. And yeah, you're not going to start and stop Earth turn. We don't have any Earth turn. Earth isn't turning. If we did, we'd have 15 degrees an hour deviation of things that aren't attached to Earth that's spinning. We don't.
It's weird. Like, intellectual people like point to that the ring laser gyro, but you know, yeah, you have to stop and start Earth to verify that. Like,
you can debunk it in a different way. I mean, the fact that it's not scientific was an internal issue, which I won't go into now, i.e. between flat earthers in terms of what is and is not science. However, the way you'd actually use that particular claim is contrary to where most people might necessarily position it. Hey, Chocolate.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. I'm going to keep this relatively brief because I don't want to get into an endless diatribe about Coriolis effect. Anyway, the way most people would position it is to do as you've done, which is debunk it. And not necessarily the way you've done it, actually, but you know, you've done it by claiming it's not science, which is true. However, if you've got Earth rotating underneath a ring laser or a fibre optic or mechanical gyroscope, then Earth is rotating underneath an inertial reference frame. That's Coriolis deviation. The 15 degrees an hour that they claim with that fibre optic gyro is Earth rotating underneath a gyroscope in an inertial reference frame not attached to the spinning Earth moving underneath it. That's the deviation. Coriolis effect is essentially what that is claimed to demonstrate. Same with the pendulum. Pendulum swings in one direction, back and forth, back and forth. That's all it does. But because Earth's rotating underneath, it knocks over the dominoes. And the rate it's knocking them over is 15 degrees an hour. Well, that's a claim of Coriolis deviation. Well, if you take that as read, okay, so the pendulum shows that we've got an inertial reference frame with the pendulum in it, just moving back and forth, not deviating, but seeming to deviate because Earth is rotating under the pendulum at 15 degrees an hour. All right, so if you're not attached to Earth, inertial reference frame, from the ground, you'll observe things drift then, at 15 degrees an hour. Oh yeah, you'll see a ball drift. It'll go through goal, says Neil deGrasse Tyson. From the stands, it looks like it's curving, but in reality, it's travelling straight and Earth's turning underneath the ball, meaning it goes through the goal. Because Earth's turning underneath the ball, it's in the inertial reference frame. So you go, okay, so Earth's turning at 15 degrees an hour underneath a pendulum and a gyro and a football, because they're not attached to the spinning reference frame of a claim to be spinning Earth. So that plane up there, travelling through the sky, is also not attached. So I would look at it and see it seem to curve then. Not actual deflection, it's obviously travelling straight, but from the ground, because I'm spinning underneath it, it seems to curve, right? That plane's looking like it's curving when it's actually travelling straight. That's because we're turning underneath, according to the claim that Earth is spinning 15 degrees an hour underneath the plane. But if Earth's turning at 15 degrees an hour underneath an aeroplane, then the destination that the plane is travelling to is coming towards it at whatever speed the Earth is claimed to be turning at. So in the case of a flight between Charlotte, North Carolina and Los Angeles, a flight that in actuality takes about 3.5, 4 hours, if you've got Earth turning underneath that aeroplane so that I can look up at it and see it seem to curve, that's Coriolis deviation. So I'll look up and see it seem to drift at 15 degrees an hour. Wow, look at that plane seem to curve. Well, that means that Los Angeles is coming towards that plane at about 800 miles an hour. Well, that would shorten the flight time to about an hour and a half. Because Earth's rotating underneath the plane, so we can see this 15 degrees an hour deviation they claim we have. So when they say 15 degrees an hour, that's all they say. 15 degrees an hour of the gyro proves Earth spinning. No, the gyro is claimed to demonstrate Coriolis effect. And that would be 15 degrees an hour, claimed to be rotation of Earth underneath the gyro, and underneath a football, and underneath a bullet, and underneath an aeroplane, and underneath a drone, and underneath a hot air balloon, and underneath a helicopter. So Earth turns underneath drones, does it? Earth turns underneath aeroplanes, does it? No, it doesn't. The things that are in the air for any significant period of time do not in any way, shape or form demonstrate 15 degrees an hour deviation. Well, they absolutely must if Earth's turning underneath, as is claimed by the gyroscope. It just isn't. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well said.
What gravity? Which gravity? What's gravity?
Take your pick, don't mind. Scientific evidence of any gravity.
There's evidence of things fall down and go boom boom. Is that gravity?
That's something falling down, go boom boom. About helium balloons, do they fall down, go boom boom?
They rise up and go fly fly.
Then that's not everything going down, go boom boom then. This universal downward vector, 9.8 meters per second. Yeah, that's not universal at all, is it? Things go up.
The only evidence for gravity would be against its downfall.
Boom, boom. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
None whatsoever. Not from those fields. Not real science.
I can observe, and then I can observe it again, and then I can time it, and I can predict its location. There you go.
Not a scientific prediction, though, is it?
But is that like the new hotness scientific method? Observe, form a hypothesis, and then just keep observing?
Yeah, but the crucial detail is they then take the hypothesis as the explanation, even though it's not been tested.
Excuse me, Chocolate, can you quote a scientist? Chocolate, if you're going to enter this field, this genre, please quote a scientist that uses new hotness.
Dr. Chocolate saying.
According to Vsauce, science doesn't prove anything.
What an outrage. Yeah, all those people who are dying of scurvy because science didn't prove the lack of vitamin C to be the cause of that effect. That wasn't validated by science. Science didn't prove anything. All those people are dead. Oh, my bad. Yeah, science definitely proved that, didn't it? Science proves or disproves an alternative hypothesis. But the scientific method is rigorously laid down with a null. So at the end of the process, that would be systematic experimentation. You'll either prove your null or prove your alternative. In other words, something's getting proved if you follow science. So that's all it does. It only proves your hypothesis if you perform the method. That is to say, you go through the full extent of the scientific method and get to the systematic experimentation stage where you prove your alternative or prove your null. So something's getting proven if you're doing science. What the hell is Vsauce Michael babbling about? He hasn't got the vaguest clue what science is.
I know. Wow. I know why he's babbling that. He's babbling that because science doesn't prove his model.
Yeah, what he should have said is, I don't know that the Earth's an oblate spheroid, but my pseudoscience that I used to claim it doesn't prove anything. He didn't say that. He said science doesn't prove anything because he's asserted the claim of a sphere Earth is backed by science. And it is not. That would be a pseudoscience assertion because it's been claimed under the umbrella of science, which it's not when it's not gone through the method. So what he actually means, to paraphrase his lies, is pseudoscience I have used prior to this point didn't prove Earth was a sphere. We said it was science, it wasn't.
They've got a probabilistic belief, though, Nathan, don't you know? It's probably true It's more than likely true. It's possibly true, but there's no empirical nature to that at all.
Right. It's indeed. That says it all, Paul. Precisely.
Get out of jail free.
Moving on. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Don't all go at once.
They detected it with seismic waves, but all that's just baloney.
You almost said it right. Just try once more. Try again. You nearly got it.
Me? What, with seismic waves?
Just gotta, you're using too much detail. Just say,
I know,
Nathan. I can do it.
just listen and learn, The Apprentice. Go ahead, Paul.
P waves, S waves.
There you go. Oh, genius. P waves and S waves. Oh, that's us defeated. That's all you gotta do. Really easy being a baller. It's actually quite good fun. I've been doing it over the weekend in the chat. You just need a few little buzzwords. Yeah? A few little phrases. No argument necessary. P waves and S waves is one of those. Just say P waves and S waves. Don't give any explanation. It's even better if you don't actually understand what that means.
Say fusion, even if it's not matter.
Yeah, next Tuesday sometime.
Is there any other way they claim, or is it just seismic waves or P and S waves?
That's the only way I know of them claiming to prove a self-perpetuating molten iron core. If anyone else can educate me on the other claims of bullshit nonsense that might be used to claim this, I don't know of any others. Anybody else know of any others that are claimed to prove? Not that P waves and S waves are definitive proof of anything. They've been proven wrong with the 8-mile deep Kohler deep borehole, where they predicted what they would cut through and they didn't cut through it. So no, these aren't reliable. But I don't know of any other claims. Does anybody else know of anything else that is even an attempt? It's hard to say with the cold. An attempt to prove the self-perpetuating molten iron core.
I think it was something with magnetism, but I don't know what.
Well, that's just the claim of magnetism. That's the self-perpetuating molten iron core. That's part of the claim.
That's all.
Well, we debunk it with that, though, don't we? So we say, well, no, because the molten iron core is beyond the Curie point, so it wouldn't develop any magnetism whatsoever.
But we have a magnetic field. If I see magnetic field, therefore we have a molten iron core that perpetuates that.
It's affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy is what you're trying to say there, eh?
Yes, sir.
And that's it. You melt a magnet and it loses
hold on, chocolate.
magnetic properties.
Start again, The Apprentice. Go ahead.
Just if you melt a magnet, it loses its magnetic properties.
Right.
Oh no, that doesn't work with the story. Come on.
Okay, I'm going to do a couple of quick shout-outs. So, shout-out to my latest 2 members. I did give you a shout-out in the pre-show as well, but shout-out to flatearthchannel.com, who's joined as a lion, and also Michael Jones, who's joined as a penguin. So thank you very much for joining as Nathan Oakley 1980 channel members. Also, a big shout-out to Retro Bill, who smashed the super chat. Says, the ballers have a dome. It's called the Umbrella of Science. Yeah, it should be the Umbrella of Pseudoscience there, Retro Bill. Thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you to Michael and flatearthchannel.com for joining as Nathan Oakley 1980 channel members. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? You're keen as mustard at the intro.
No, I'm just waiting for others, but I guess there's no others. So, no, it's just a light in the sky. We don't know the distance.
Only an assumption
The only
of
claims,
light in the sky.
All I've heard is it sticks and shadows. I don't know another way they do it, lasers, or I don't know.
That's pretty good. If you just left out the I don't know bit, so Just try that again without the I don't know. So say sticks and shadows and then shut up. Or, even better, because it's just one word, just say lasers. And then don't say anything else. Don't provide anything. Just say those. Try it again. See how you go.
Well, they claim sticks and shadows.
Oh, you're so close.
Just no, you gotta say it with confidence. Sticks and shadows, with gusto. Of course, lasers, my man. Come on.
Just gotta say lasers. You can say it with a derogatory tone. That's even better.
I don't want to say it like that's verifiable proof. It's just that's what they claim, and no one can verify it.
We're trying to force you into playing devil's advocate, and you're not biting. I can tell.
Yeah, just try finding a laser that could shoot 90 miles first, okay?
Got there in the end. Sorry, 10th man.
Sticks and shadows is they just assume the distance.
Yeah, they're already working under the presupposition that they're on a sphere when you do the...
Oh, I've got to correct you.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I got to correct you. It was not a laser. It was radar. They shot radar at Venus, and they shot radar at the sun. They shot a laser at the moon. Come on, get your facts straight.
You didn't give any of those facts. You very much assumed that. You've divined his thoughts there, haven't you? That's why I instructed him as a glober. It's probably best that you don't go into any detail. Just say lasers, because then if you make the assumption that he actually means lasers fired at the moon, off those reflectors, based on them dropping them there when they travelled through the second law of thermodynamics violation to the sound stage they claimed was the moon. Yeah, well, those lasers, that could be his go-to, but he hasn't said that if he just says lasers. It's, like I say, it's very easy to be a globehead. Just throw out these spurious words. And same in rebuttal, right? If we lay down a really good argument, it's really easy to just, as a glober to say things like cherry-picking. No explanation, no detail, just cherry-picking. That's all you need. Or, you don't understand. That's a good one, right? Being a glober's easy.
It's even better when you do like a combination, like a fusion. So you say first, you don't understand lasers.
Perfect.
And then leave it at that.
I can do it too. Watch. You don't understand P waves and S waves.
Oh, you got us.
Yeah, check this one. This works. This is good. You don't understand gravity.
Yeah, you just don't understand dark matter.
You could just mix and match. Collect the whole set.
Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius.
You don't understand Aristophanes, man.
Yeah, I do.
Right? Gradient proves R?
Gradient?
Gradient proves R. Gradient proves everything, man.
Right, refraction. Refraction proves R.
You want me to put down that train of thought, how that works?
Yes, please.
Gradient
proves R. Well, okay. The gradient, basically, it's there. And then I'm going to presuppose it can only be there because there is more gas pressure to the Earth, which would then have to be a ball opposing the outer space. And therefore, it proves the Earth is a ball and has a radius. Because
I see. So you've done what chocolate did. So you've turned it into an affirm in the consequent formal logical fallacy. If Earth has a radius, then we will experience a gas pressure gradient next to a 10 to the minus 17 Torr vacuum. And we do assume that we've got a 10 to the minus 17 Torr vacuum next to the gas pressure we're breathing. Therefore, Earth has a radius. That's like a triple fallacy. That's like a triple-decker fallacy right there.
Yeah.
That's my something better.
It's assuming your outcome in the premise of R. It's assuming your outcome in the justification, in the affirming the consequent, for your assumption of R, and then it's justifying your assumption with your assumption within the premise of Q. It's absolutely horrendous, Owen. I absolutely love it.
You're welcome.
That's the kind of level of nonsensical, non sequitur fallacy that we do occasionally get here, though. So it's good that you're testing me.
I've got an even better one. Come on now. You got weight and hydrostatic pressure. What you got?
Hydro. What does that mean?
It's flowing, it's moving, it's going in all directions all the time, and there's a gradient. That's what hydrostatic means.
Hydrostatic means flowing in all directions. So hydro means what? And static means flowing.
Well, gas acts like a liquid when it's under pressure, Nathan. Come on. So you can actually say hydro, the gas is like a liquid. Come on. And
What?
it's static.
Under pressure?
No.
Under which pressure is that?
Yeah, when it's compressed together so tightly that it cannot move freely and randomly in all directions, you can describe it as a fluid. However, this hydrostatic equilibrium, it's got this awkward little word static in it, hasn't it, Paul?
Also, I think it requires a pretty strong container to achieve that.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, indeed. How do we get the hydrostatic equilibrium theoretical state without a container? Paul.
That's where the weight comes in. Gas has weight. You forgot that. That's why I threw weight in there. That's how you do it.
Gas has weight. No, gas does not have an exclusively downward vector. This 9.8 meters per second exclusively downward vector they assert with gravity. We covered this at the early stages of this particular show. So that can be debunked by showing something going up. It's not this exclusive downward vector. So helium does the opposite of that, doesn't it? Well, gas just expands in all directions. It doesn't have an exclusively downward vector. So in a vacuum chamber, if you release gas, it just fills the availability of volume it has. Well, that isn't needing sweeping up at the end because it's gone down, go boom boom with this exclusively downward vector now, is it? You don't have to sweep up gas in a vacuum chamber if you release it. It just fills the available volume. Precisely as our gas would do if the sky was a vacuum called outer space. 10 to the minus 17 torr, a claim of the most powerful vacuum known to man, is directly above your head, so they say. And you know what's happening with the gas you're breathing in and out of your lungs? It's not dispersing into that vacuum in violation of natural law. So the sky is not a vacuum, outer space is fake. And therefore all claims of any travel or photographs from that region or through that region are automatically deemed void. Lies, fake, fraud, scam, sham, not real. Nothing that's occurred in space, or is claimed to have occurred in space, has ever actually occurred. That is the last housekeeping question. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Gradient. Oh wait, I already said that.
Nice try, though. Yeah, they got nothing. Just a model. Like I said, it's hard to defend the model when held to task. They got to reify it.
And it's funny, whenever you research entropy and the microstate issue, they always use a gas. They never talk about just energy states. They always have gas as their illustration. Why is that? Does gas want to fill all available microstates? Is that not true?
Yes, it will disperse to fill the availability of volume it has. That's what gas does.
Isn't it funny? Wasn't it that Professor George Porter, I think, who described the expansion of gas into a vacuum as the simplest form of entropy change we can have?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And there'd be no heat change as well? Didn't he also say that? No heat change?
No heat, no energy inserted into the system, just simple entropy of gas, expansion into a vacuum. Nice and simple.
So in his example, he's got a vacuum in a bulb and bromine in another bulb. And all the bromine gas is doing is it's bouncing off the chamber, and then occasionally some of the gas will bounce off the valve, which is closed, and remain in the chamber. Now, when he opens the valve, all that happens is instead of bouncing off the valve, the gas just carries on in the direction it was going. And in that instance, because it was going to but does not hit the valve, it just travels into the empty space. So the gas is moving at a high velocity in whatever direction it's travelling. If it doesn't hit anything, it just carries on going. So when he opens the valve, the gas that was bouncing off the valve just doesn't. Just carries on going into the other empty space and fills the availability of volume it has to fill. Now that's not energy transfer. It's just something not bouncing off something. It's just carrying on going into the next chamber. So that's just an entropy increase. Very simple. Correct. Good example, Chocolate.
Well, and that's why I always ask the question, can gravity decrease entropy? Because it would have to keep it from the gas expanding, right?
Well, no, it
So
doesn't.
It have to keep,
it has no effect because the description of gravity as this downward vector isn't what gas is doing. Gas doesn't have an exclusively downward vector. It's expanding in all directions. That's why it debunks this idea of Newtonian gravity. Completely just let go of a helium balloon. Bye-bye, Newtonian gravity. But this is the assertion that we have this force, this downward vector, is 105 years out of date, coming up for 106 years out of date. Yeah? It's been debunked. It's been superseded, replaced by something else that's also been debunked, which would be Einsteinian, bending of pseudo-Riemannian force space, conceptual mediums being bent to give rise to a not actual force called gravity, the bending of a conceptual medium. That's the current rhetoric of gravity, debunked by quantum mechanics. But that's the current fundy religion of this gravity not actual force. It's an effect of the uneven distribution of mass, bending space-time. Completely conceptual, completely mathematical, not a force, definitely not giving you a downward vector, definitely not overcoming entropy, definitely not making gas go down, go boom, boom.
Well, maybe something else is making the gas go down, go boom, boom.
The gas doesn't go down, go boom, boom. You're as bad as the fundies. The gas does not go down, go boom, boom.
Gas pressure in all directions, and then at some some height, arbitrary height point, it suddenly turns into down, go boom, boom.
No.
How about that?
No, gas that, when I described it, travelling in that bromine canister and hitting the valve, it's just travelling in a particular direction, and it either bounces off something, or it just carries on going in the direction that it's going. It doesn't care. And at no stage will that bromine go, you know what, I've reached the valve, there's nothing for me to bounce off, but I'm just going to arbitrarily go in the other direction. That's not what gas does.
Well, I don't think that specific test has been done at a very great height. I think it's only been done at ground level. Who knows what it's going to do? Maybe if you're really high up, it is actually going to show to go slightly go down, go boom, boom.
No, what do you mean, who knows? Got natural law. What do you mean, who knows? This is entropy, Arwin. That's what it does.
It hasn't been tested, though.
This is entropy. It's just a description of what it does.
Right, based on the understanding of everything observed. But
I've just figured out what he's doing.
That
okay,
specific test
stop.
Super high up, then you never really know for sure.
Yeah, this is a special pleading fallacy, isn't it?
I think so.
Arwin.
Yeah,
Arwin,
it is. Hold on, Arwin said it. Hold on, 10th. Yeah, he said I think so. Yes, it is. It's a special pleading fallacy. It's when they say, well, no, I envisage... I can't say that with a cold. I picture that because the scale is so big, the laws of nature no longer apply. That's special pleading.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess that is what I was doing. I do.
It's a logical fallacy, though. It's a logical fallacy, though.
Yeah, but I'm basically just assuming that natural law is natural law, and until it has, for some reason, been disproven. Now, you would actually have to go out and test it to disprove it, to actually do it. But yeah, I'm just wondering, like, nobody's ever done that. Like, why would they? Well, maybe because there is something odd that has been overlooked. How many tests have been performed at that insane altitude, bar what NASA says they've done? You know?
It's inviolable natural law.
Yeah, but inviolable until it has been tested to not be exactly correct anymore.
Right. Okay. And until that point, it's never to be violated, applied, always, never to be defied. But you're saying, with your special pleading fallacy, that if I scale it up enough, it might be different, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, special pleading fallacy.
Maybe there's some hope.
Okay, let's just juxtapose this. Maybe if
I do that one little thing.
Maybe if I can travel through the wardrobe, I can see time dilation, right? And has anybody actually gone through the wardrobe to test this? I'm just juxtaposing the exact same example with the wardrobe rather than a sky vacuum, are we? Narnia.
Okay.
So time dilation in Narnia could be the case.
Up, right?
It could be the case that time does actually dilate and we slowly actually age in this timeline but get older rapidly or at a normal rate in Narnia. Now that could be the case, but who's testing it, Arwin? Who's actually going through the wardrobe to do this? You tell me.
I don't know. They're still stuck in there for.
So it could be the case then. So it could be the case that someone does venture through the wardrobe to test this dilation problem. Correct?
Yeah, he just hasn't been back yet.
Exactly. It's just special pleading.
Yes.
Like I said, any test in the wardrobe has many hang-ups.
Well,
Terrible.
if you've not seen
Absolutely
the movie
right.
Interstellar, he's only been there about 5 minutes. So, 1,000 years of passing here. So he's only been, so he still has had a chance to come back. He just got there. So come on.
Rob Wiggles says, smash that super chat. Wow, he's giving me money to support me by telling the other people to give me money. Really, really appreciate it, Rob Wiggles. Times are tough. But thank you for the super chat in all seriousness.
What about the outward force if a ball is spinning? Anytime you see here a ball spinning, say with some water on it, the water shoots outwards. So what about that? How do they address that?
Alwyn, you need some special pleading applied to this. Go right ahead.
What? Sorry? I didn't hear that.
If the ball is big enough,
right there.
if you scale it up, 10th man, to an enormous scale, let's say the scale of Earth, right? then it'll do the complete opposite of that. Completely.
Oh, wow.
Just how it is, man.
Right, the potential, what is it? The natural gas state exchange. The point after which it will go down, go boom, boom, until it recycles back to the old region and then starts to behave normally.
I see. I'm going to play baller now. So when you scale it up and it goes way up there, it creates gravity, which pushes it back down. I get it.
No, that's something else. Now the gravity is just assumed to be there. It's just a reification of relative density. No, this is in order to bypass. No. Listen, this is in order to bypass it having to expand in all directions, even though there's a lot of room supposedly up there. So this is another effect that is suspected to be on top of it in order for gas pressure behavior to change in relation to the height it is at within the realm.
I had it till you confused me.
It's sentience. That's what it is, right? So the gas particles get to a certain height and they go, you know what, I don't think I want to venture any further than this. This looks pretty scary out there. I'm going to stay right here. That's just way too far.
It would be the upper atmospheric gas cycle, just like the hydrological cycle, except this one is virtual and with gas as it alters its behavior. Still requires a lot of testing to be done.
Still requires containment. Still requires containment.
Well,
say it.
Let's just see if it works out first.
Back to special pleading. Maybe on the big scale, no containment needed.
Yeah, on the small scale, gas next to a vacuum fills it. On the big scale, it says, hold your ground, gas particles. Do not venture forward.
Right.
Well, we got some problems with Al Biruni when he did his so-called measurements. Since no one could see the geometric horizon, what he must have measured a refracted horizon.
In a not actual location that's not got any geometry. Yeah, that's right.
Correct.
He didn't derive R from not actual locations that aren't physical or geometric. That's correct. So his whole story, his narrative of acquiring R is nonsense. That's right.
Hold on.
So now,
hang on.
Arwen, I'm not done. Hang on. So they say he came within 200 miles of the 24,902 miles. So he came within 200 miles of the Earth's circumference, which is 24,902 miles. So now the problem I see here right off the bat is if you within 200 miles and the only thing you supposedly measured was a refracted horizon on that one given day at that one particular time. If he showed up the next day, it was foggy, he would have measured a whole different horizon. And given the day, the Earth changes in size, unless you have a geometric horizon, which is physical. So they got the radius from a not actual location, their refracted horizon, because he didn't take into account refraction and how light behaves.
Yeah, he assumed Earth was a sphere with a physical sphere edge that you could derive geometry from, and it isn't, and it doesn't. It's just part of their story.
Right. So
the horizon is a contradiction in terms. You can't
I agree.
retract the horizon.
Exactly.
I agree. But what I'm saying is I'm reading on the people who make this guy like a hero, and he did something great using an astrolabe, and he came within 200 miles. Well, 200 miles of what? And a physical edge doesn't change. And we know at the observer height at 1 foot, it's no more than 1.22 miles out. And that could be seen all day long in most cases, unless it's heavy fog. But we don't see that.
There's a million and one things that could be cause for the horizon to be in a different position. It's a not actual, not physical location. Now, the only way you can make the assumption that is asserted by Al-Biruni is to put the world in orthographic Muppet vision and then do geometry based on that. And that's precisely what he's done. He's measuring a non-physical, not actual location that is not going to derive any R value from, because it's not capable of deriving an R value from it unless it is a physical sphere edge, and it isn't. It's just that simple. They've got a very big problem in the form of a geometric physical sphere edge being required to block boats and buildings and be measured by Al-Biruni. But we're also being told it's not physical, it only exists in maths. We wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon. Well, that's the basis of their claim that we have physical geometry. So if you can't see physical geometry, we don't have physical geometry. Simple.
Can I interject with a funny thing I just happened to see? I went into the live stream and I'm just happened to glance for a second, and I see a comment by Professor Phil Bell, who says, at David Reed, I personally used the retro reflectors on the moon. How did they get there? How do I know exactly where they are?
What?
Okay, there are no.
Personally use it.
Let's let Chocolate
personally. Yes.
Chocolate's built it up. Let Chocolate address it as well. Go ahead, Chocolate.
No, I mean, I'd love to hear how you personally use the retro reflectors that have been placed on the moon in a second law of thermodynamics violation. Don't even see what the point of that was, because supposedly wasn't there a story that they bounced things off the moon before those reflectors were there anyway? Yeah. In your second law of thermodynamics violation?
There are no retro
funny.
reflectors on the moon. The claim that men have travelled through a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum to land on a rock in the sky at a distance based on a presupposed R value, giving them a presupposed Venus value, to apply Kepler's third law to give them the distance to travel to this rock in the sky through a violation of natural law, is the biggest pile of horse crap there is. There are no retro reflectors on the moon. Nobody's been to the moon. Nobody's travelled through the sky vacuum. There is no sky vacuum. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill that space, and there'd be no gas for us to breathe. For us to have gas, we must be contained. There must be containment for us to achieve gas pressure. So there is absolutely no way anybody has travelled through a sky vacuum. It is not the case that the sky is a vacuum called outer space. Nobody's travelled through it. Nobody's taken pictures from it. It's Narnia. It's not real. It stands in violation of natural law. No retroreflectors. It's just bullshit.
Well, like the man said himself, like Nathan Oakley would say, we presuppose our model. Oh, yes, we presuppose our model. Yeah, good job, Professor. Good job.
Yeah, I just call him just Phil Bell, given that he doesn't understand that water vapour is gas. He spent a prolonged period of time with other gentlemen laughing at how stupid we were for asserting that water vapour is gas. And he, while they were claiming how stupid we were for making this assertion, declared that it was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. This is a man who works in hydrology. A man who should be fired because he thinks water vapour is not gas. This just Phil Bell is a moron. But he likes his bedtime stories. This old man with his old bedtime stories that he was presumably told as a child about Santa and sky vacuums. He's kept hold of the sky vacuum bit, that philosophical.
Don't forget his laser pointer.
I want to call him Professor Retroreflector. That's an awesome name.
Did you ever see the interview with Professor Brian Cox? Go on, Dan, sorry. Go, Dan, go.
I imagine his last name being End.
One more time.
I imagine his last name being End, E-N-D.
Bell End.
Oh, it's just a cheap ad hom. Yes, Professor Phil Bellend. Yes, indeed. But by demonstration, asserting that water vapour is not gas is a Bellend statement to make. Laughing about it.
Does have a nice ring to it, though.
Ding dong.
Hey, he just posted that what we do is not or match reality. Excuse me, we've been asking you 8 housekeeping questions about your model, and all you got to do is answer it for your model to be reality, but you can't do it.
Mr. Retroreflector? Talking about reality? All right, buddy.
Did any of you guys ever see the Professor Brian Cox discussion in the back of a big 4x4 with either a director or a producer, and he's travelling to I don't know where it is, but one of these places that fires lasers that they claim to be retroreflectors, and the producer's having to explain to Professor Brian Cox why it's relevant to highlight the fact that this measurement that they're claiming to make proves that they've been to the moon. Because Professor Brian Cox is like, well, I just beg the question, of course we're on a sphere. He's like, no, but we need to explain to the audience how this is actually proving it. He's like, but I don't get it. It's stupid to not just assume the Earth's a sphere. He's like, no, you're not getting it, Professor Brian Cox. You need to reiterate that for her to do this measurement, men have been to the moon. It's really important that the audience hears this. Don't you get it? Haven't you read the script? Professor Brian Cox replies, no, I haven't really read the script. Well, if you'd read the script, you'd understand the importance of making the public understand. I'll see if I can dig it out. I actually did a little breakdown of it. If I can find it. Talk amongst yourselves, hopefully. Funny. Or don't talk amongst yourselves while I'm searching.
Yeah, that's I do recall watching it at one time. So yeah, if you find it, that'd be great.
That kind of reminds me of the little elbow bump that Armstrong gave Collins.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, talk about the story the way we have to, guy.
Don't bring in the stars. Don't talk about the stars.
We need to square that up in the briefing.
Yeah, isn't it interesting when you watch that press conference? It's like their best friend died.
Right, I'm just going to play this. Hopefully it's the correct video. We'll see in a second. It's only a 4-minute video. And in the video, he has a director explaining to him that there is a purpose in going to an observatory to point out to any non-believers that, of course, we have been to the moon. Now, my attitudes towards people like Brian Cox have changed considerably during my time in the flat earth arena, and that is to say that all of us have been deceived for the purposes of criticism. I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.
Okay, where are we going?
There are so no, I'm saying it on camera. There are so many things that you could talk about, right? You could talk about. Oh, I don't know. Fuck it. Bollocks. The moon landings happened, and it's nonsensical. It's like saying, was America ever discovered? Right. Well, yes, it was. Did we work out how to? Did we discover penicillin? Yes. Did we go to the moon? Yes. That's the end of it. There's no information, content, or use in debating it anymore.
Right. Tell me where we're going in respect to the fact that ultimately this completely proves the fact that they went there.
Well, first of all, I don't even accept that it needs proving, because you've got to be a complete moron to anyway.
But remember, right. If you don't hear my question, your answer doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, right. Are you really suggesting that in this program, a scientific documentary program about gravity, you're going to even mention the words, could it have been true that the moon landings were fakes?
That's just for the audience's benefit. That's what I mean by him saying, I just automatically assume this is correct. So therefore, why would it ever be necessary to point out to the public that it's not? I just wanted to get that in there because I preempted this video with it.
Well, you know the script that I wrote?
Yes.
Did you read it?
No.
There we go.
Does it say something about
it? It says something like it's a comedy throwaway line. I'm not saying that we're saying that it didn't happen. It's a comedy throwaway line in that, of course it bloody happened because I fire a laser at the moon and it sends it back. It's a silly thing to have said. So...
All right.
Where are we going and what does it prove or not prove, and who cares?
We're going to the loser laser range. We're going to the lunar. We're going to the. Where are we going?
So they're going to the place that we were discussing earlier. So they're going to this place that fires a laser at the retroreflectors that are claimed to be on the moon. And the director's pointing out that, of course, firing a laser at retroreflectors that men have taken to the moon proves men have been to the moon. And he's trying to explain that to him.
Where are we going? McDonald Observatory.
So that's that.
Interesting that.
What a low life.
Interesting that he brought up. Look, man, I could beg the question. America discovered penicillin and moon landing. He just lumped a bunch of things together just to make the moon landing have some good company.
And that's what the producer's trying to get across to him. Look, we're stacking up these incidentals to demonstrate to a public that's watching it by inference that men have been to the moon. And you need to get across that in a throwaway way.
And even in that context, he just was so cognitive, like, oh, it's so moronic to think that it's not something that happened. Like, what? Oh, man.
Well, I even said, read this. That's why I wrote the script. I wrote the script.
It's like your exasperation about how it's absolutely absurd for someone to think otherwise isn't going to help us in this demonstration that's being broadcast. You need to explain it in a way that I'm explaining it in the script that you haven't learned. Of course men went to the moon with firing lasers at the reflectors they left there. Right? That proves it, doesn't it? No, it doesn't prove it, but you need to say that to the audience in a way that's so throwaway and jokey that they won't even recognise they've been told it. And then we'll move on to looking at the science, which isn't science.
Like that reminds me of this cornball wannabe professor who just put that nonsense about the retroreflector in the chat. Like, really? Just gonna presuppose and just assume, right? And then tell us that that's fact. Even in your little scripted TV shows. It's unbelievable, man.
But Brian Cox reminds me of someone who drank his own Kool-Aid so much that when someone is saying, look, we need to do it this way so that all the normies just won't think and accept what we're doing. And Brian Cox is saying, no, man, I've drank the Kool-Aid. My whole profession is based on this thing being a ball. I don't need to prove it. I just need to assume it.
Yeah. The producer recognises where there's a level of programming that needs to be performed. Brian Cox doesn't. He just accepts the programming and thinks that everyone else should be like him.
Shameful. Shameful for people in academia to act this way. Not to dot the I's, cross the T's, expect people to just accept it. The sheep will, but, we're going to contend against the pseudoscience.
And at least, like, as much as I can't stand him, at least Neil deGrasse Tyson was sort of honest when he said, when he talks about ancient civilizations and people back in the day thinking it's flat. This, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but wasn't it this moron Brian Cox who said, "Oh, nobody thought it was ever flat"?
Yeah, it was. Yes, that's correct.
Like what, bro?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man.
Well, that's how much Kool-Aid he's drank.
extra sugar.
Well, when it's your profession to be one of the leading speakers, let's put it that way. I don't even want to give him a title here on the subject, and he's got to fight for the top of the rung against Neil deGrasse Tyson and some of these other types. He's got to make a name for himself. So he's going to say outlandish things, believe his own press, make up his own press. He's living in such a bubble.
So again, just Phil Bell is like, go to an observatory and see for yourselves. Well, really early on into this discussion, a guy who I used to live with when I first left home and was at college got in touch with me via Facebook after I started putting out flat earth information. And he explained to me that he'd been to, I can't remember the name of the observatory now, I've got another video, I won't dig it out, but he went to an observatory, Goonhilly, that was it, and as a kid had seen the lunar rover at Goonhilly on a monitor, not through an eyepiece. And he was like, yeah, you can just go and look for yourself. And I was like, I want to do that. So I got in touch with them. I was like, I want to come down and see the lunar rover. And I got an email back from Goonhilly saying they were undergoing various refurbishment. But even if I wanted to go down and they were open, I couldn't, because you couldn't see the lunar rover even with the most powerful telescope on Earth. Furthermore, you couldn't see it with Hubble. It's too small in arc seconds. So it's not visible. So when people like Just Phil say, just go to an observatory and look, these reflectors are smaller than the claim to be lunar rover. And I know from contacting an observatory, not because I did the maths or worked it out, but because somebody who is au fait with how many arc seconds this stuff is at the distances claimed by heliocentrism, explained to me in no uncertain terms that you cannot see the lunar rover. No, you cannot. So as for seeing these retro reflectors, which are even smaller, total horseshit lies from Just Phil Bell. No, you can't see them.
Is Just Phil saying that he is personally seeing the lunar rover from Earth?
It's the fairly typical fallacy of burden of proof reversal when dealing with people like Just Phil, who is moronic. You can just go and observe it. No, burden of proof reversal fallacy, Just Phil. So, Just Phil Bell, given that you've told us from the chat that you, meaning us, can just go and observe this. No, you can do it, Phil, and you will. Like when Rumpus told us about his measurements to Polaris, and how easy it would be for us to do it. That was turned into, no, Rumpus, you will now do this, it's so easy. So, Just Phil Bell, moron who doesn't know that water vapour is gas, you will provide this to us. Given that you've told us how easy it would be to just go to an observatory and acquire these visual images. So you will do this, in the face of me explaining how it cannot be done, proving you a liar. But given that you think it's challengeable for us to do it, you will be now held to task for doing this, Phil. Just Phil.
Amazing that they still come and chat, won't come on the show, and then they'll do anything to keep this globe model alive so they could somewhat have peace of mind in their crazy world of theirs. Arguing points that can't be proven, but believing them.
Quick shout out to Al Junkie, who says, we have a new cowboy in town. Philosopher Bell. Laughing face. massive thanks to Al Junkie and everyone else for smashing the super chat, hopefully liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. Another massive thank you to both Discord and G Plus Panels for making this live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Do a quick read of a Sleeping Warrior's last comment in the chat, right? So Sleeping Warrior says, at Prof Phil Bell, they could bounce lasers off the moob before retro reflectors were claimed to have been put on there. Sorry. But just thought it was quite funny. They could bounce lasers off the moob.
See, they'll go to any lengths to keep their reification model alive. They have to. It's the foundation of everything that they are.
Yeah, and with a nihilistic worldview, you're more than content to lie.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a big distinct difference between someone like my old housemate saying, yeah, I saw it when I was a kid, and then you dig into the story of what actually occurred, and he's been taken on a tour of Goon Hilly, told all about how we landed on the moon, and shown images on a screen, and led to believe that he's seeing them from the telescope. That's how he described it to me. So you go, oh yeah, so a school trip takes the kids round, they see the lunar rover as a little dot on the surface of what looks like a cratered moon, and they're led to the idea that they can look at it through the telescope. They can't, but that's the impression he was left with for the majority of his adult life, until I did a little bit of digging on his behalf, based on his claim that, no, you can just see the lunar lander. We've obviously been to the moon. You can see it. I've seen it. I saw it when I was a kid. No, you didn't. But you think you did, didn't you? So much so that you're more than happy to tell me off, tell me how wrong I am, and demand that I go to Goon Hilly to prove what you think you've had proven to you. And upon investigation, you haven't had it proven to you. You've in fact been deceived, misled.
Crazy, man. That's...
Indeedy. I like the Monday shows. They tend to be very informative. Even the pre-show.
Yeah, that was good. But, you know, off the last narrative you gave, what they did to your friend by showing a separate image, but not the actual. They do that all the time with TV shows and everything. It's an old trick of theirs.
Yeah, exactly. That trick has been transposed onto Science at NASA YouTube channel, and they do it all day long. That's all they do. But when you're having it done in that context, when you're standing in front of a big telescope, that's a much more powerful and potent magic that's being performed on children.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I find it funny. They always mention, oh, there was one lunar rover that we should be able to see. Shouldn't there be 3 of them up there? Shouldn't the last 3 missions all go up with one of those things that unfolded? So why doesn't anybody ever talk about that? That's
Yeah, we didn't go.
I find that a little weird.
We didn't go. It's like Eric DeBay's most recent video pulling apart all of the moon landing stuff based on previous investigations, and I'm not, decrying any of those investigations. But by the same token, we are now at the stage where it's like, no, they claim to have travelled through a violation of natural law to get there. That's the end of the argument. Claiming how
I get it.
People have pulled apart the shadows and the cinematography that might have been used. It's like, yeah, but while you're arguing about that, you're arguing about the idea of space and the moon still being what they claim it to be. Well, if you say you can't travel to a moon that is claimed to be in a second law of thermodynamics violation through a sky vacuum that would kill us all because we wouldn't have any gas to breathe, that definitely hasn't happened. Therefore, all stories that have come from that place, sky vacuum, out of space, are fake. That's the end of the argument.
No, I get it. I mean, for like even the people that still believe they live on a globe but want to debunk the moon landing, it's like I don't really hear that particular point ever brought up. To be honest, it's always just they always speak about it like it was just one. But the story, as far as I'm aware, is that they had 3 of them that went up there.
Well, it's
4
like
of them were built, and I think 3 of them went up, and 1 I think was used for spare parts.
It's like it's like a throwaway line in that script. It's like we'll say all these things. We'll say there's 3, and if they believe there's 3, then we got them on all 3. If they only want to believe there's 1, then we got them on the 1. They're just stories at the time to reify everything into existence.
Yeah,
and then later, when you go look at it, you say, "Well, how could that be?" And they're onto something else.
Well, these are things like even before I got into flat Earth, I used to try to think about practically like, wait a minute. So if they went up there with a car, basically, why would they need to bring another one? Like if it was so dope that it could work the first time, why couldn't they just park it up and then the next mission that gets there, just give them the keys, start it up, and it should be all good, right?
They went to different parts though, so they'd have to hike.
Like by this time, we should have like an AutoZone up there, like
right. But this is why this moon landing magic trick is quite clever. So, to give you an example, if we now discuss whether or not we could transmit the distances based on the power and all the rest of it, we could end up in a very long, convoluted argument with a globehead who actually justifies how they could transmit with 1950s technology from the moon at the distances for, say, a telephone call or whatever, the comms. Well, that argument takes place with the assumption that space is real and that the journey could have taken place. And if we end with the globehead proving that that technology could actually do what they claim to be done, does that prove that we have a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum above our head for them to travel through? No, it does not. But the argument will always be contextualised around the idea that space is real, the journey did take place or was potentially taking place. Like calculating the fuel. Well, the journey's taking place. We'll just need to calculate how much fuel they did or didn't use to prove that they did it. Well, no. They're travelling to Narnia. The sky vacuum. So it doesn't matter how much fuel you say they used. Makes no difference. It doesn't matter what you say they did up there with their dune buggies or their golf clubs. They didn't go there. Where there isn't a real place. So it's irrelevant to argue about whether they transmitted there, if they walked there, if the suits would work, what the vacuum would do to them as they travelled, the radiation belts. All of it is nonsense. Not one shred of it is worth arguing about. In fact, quite the contrary. Arguing about it leaves you in a position where you're assuming that space is real. And at the end of the argument, you might prove that rockets wouldn't work in a vacuum, but you're still pre-assuming that the sky is actually a vacuum.
One of the best shows you ever did, Nathan, was the Emperor's Clothes and the kid, the back and forth of the kid saying, "It's crashing, it's crashing." No, it's not. It's crashing. Yes, it's crashing.
It looks bad. It looks like it's going down.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Even the kids spot your crap.
No, son, that's the temperature of the earth.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the adult said to him. Now, I'm not decrying the adult. That adult doesn't know any better and thinks he's educating his child or whoever, niece, nephew, whatever the kid was. But, that parent just says, yeah, that's an effect of heliocentric programming. Now listen to the heliocentric programming. The kid, on the other hand, just believes the evidence of his own eyes. It's going down.
That's what you should have showed to Spurs when you asked who they are.
Neil, what are you trying to say? You're breaking up.
The worst part of that was the adult probably wasn't even really thinking about it, right? Like he was just this is cool. Meanwhile, the kid's sitting there like, this doesn't look good. It's going down. And then the adult had to work it out like, what's going on? Wait a minute. Got to do some quick calculations. Yeah, it's the curve of the Earth. Yeah, that's it. It's rotating because the Earth is spinning. Yeah, that's it. That'll work. Meanwhile, my kid just debunked this whole shit. It's great.
I think it's downhill from here for the Fundy Globe believers, because it is, as much as we've laid into that Michael from Vsauce guy, that's relatively recent. 8 months ago isn't that long ago, and we're having people decry the globe Earth belief as non-scientific. Yeah, they're throwing science under the bus at the same time, but by the same token, it's like, you're covering your ass, aren't you?
Yes. That's why I brought it up. I wanted to bring it up again because why? What are you doing, Mr. Vsauce guy? Your entire channel's filled with videos supposedly talking about how we know we live on a ball. And then you start that little comment with, I know it's a 3D spheroid, but no, it is a 3D spheroid, but I don't know that. Science doesn't prove anything. What? He's a roundhouse kick to freaking face.
True science does prove things. Pseudoscience is what he's got. And since we can't prove his model, he has to throw science under the bus, but it's really pseudoscience because you can't throw the empirical method, the scientific method, under any bus.
Yeah, that's when the people come with the torches and the pitchforks. They say, "You knew then. You said nothing." You're like, "No. Look at that interview where I said I don't know. Science doesn't prove things. Thank you. Going home."
That's one of the worst. I mean, they've said many bad things, but that's like top 5 for me. There is science doesn't prove things. The minute they say that, they might as well just tap out. They just gave up.
Yeah, after the years of science proves the globe. You remember that, ballers? Remember you guys used to say that? Science proves the globe. Science proves that we live on a spinning, magical water ball flying around in a vacuum. Remember that? It wasn't that long ago.
Isn't it funny? We've never changed, and they have to change their rhetoric.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why I like pointing it out. I like seeing the change in their arguments that they say were so strong in the beginning, right?
Hold on. Here we go.
Hold on. Before this turns into a complete circle jerk, no, we have actually changed our approach many times because we first thought that, that there was potentially some kind of curve first, and then we figured out optics. So we have changed our narrative.
I just
adapted it more to real things.
I never thought.
Oh, and at the same time, they have also figured out optics because that's why they're telling us now. Oh, you guys forgot about
also adapted
optics?
to some real things by basically retracting old statements, saying, "No, we never said that." That's
Hang on,
their
Arwen.
progress.
Hang on, Arwen. You've been on the show longer than I have, so I may not have been at those episodes. But I have never thought there was a curve. I'd never seen a curve. Nathan even says when he goes on the plane, he wish he could go higher because he can't see a curve. So I'm not exactly tracking with you here.
Sleeping Warrior and Arwen both were at the start of the discussions or at the start of the debate much more even in terms of their, well, there might be a curve. Let's consider it. Whereas me, I'd gone way past that. Now, that's not to say that, what Arwen or Sleeping Warrior did was incorrect, but I'd often get Sleeping Warrior contacting me saying, I think I can see Earth curve, and he'd show me something, and what he'd be showing me is a claim of physical geometric sphere-edge horizon obscuring things in the distance. Now, it's easy to phrase it like that 4 years down the line, but back then, his turning the world side view in his understanding of what the horizon is and what it's doing to the picture he's taken would lead him to assert that he's seeing Earth curve. Now, nothing he saw was curving, but that's how he phrased it to me back in the day, because he was just open to the idea and wanted to look at it and consider it while he was taking his pictures, which is perfectly reasonable. That's how you should be. If you're out there, you need to go out there with a blank slate. Not I'm looking for my confirmation bias, which is what the ballers do. I'm going to go out and try and find a bally picture. Well, Anthony didn't do that. He just presented what he got. And he's like, well, this picture would be used by them to assert that the sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, is blocking the Isle of Man at this distance, based on their side view maths. Now, that's far from the case now. Anthony Riley is way in advance of that, as is Arwin. But he's just saying, yeah, back in the day, we'd consider it to be Earth curve when we reified geometry. Now we don't. It's untenable. You can't reify the geometry anymore. And it's so devastating, it's left a right mess of the model, because you can't assert both physical sphere edge obstruction of boats and buildings, and we wouldn't expect to see, there is no geometric horizon. The geometric horizon only exists in the maths. We wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon. You can't both be physical, blocking boats, and non-physical, not expected to be seen. It's just left the model untenable. Can't assert Earth curve anymore. There is no Earth curve. Only exists in maths.
So let me see if I get this straight. So prior to this last part of your statement, when they were looking at and I'll say it, apparent horizon on different times as they would check it out, it'd be closer, further. That's not actual position. They were thinking that because that's the furthest they could see, that curve had to start downward after that. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, just an essential turning 90 degrees of their worldview and assuming that when plotted out and mathematically calculated as a physical sphere edge, it's that much blocking the boats and buildings in the distance.
But
and saying the word Earth curve.
But wouldn't you have to pre-assume a sphere to even have that statement come out of your mouth?
Yeah, this is before we figured out, before we even figured out that just using the calculator at all is immediately begging the question. Before we figured that out. So yeah, you're right. You've got to assume your sphere, but that's what Anthony Riley and Arwin both did. I think that's all Arwin's saying. Back in the day, he still considered it.
You just said something. Calculator. That was missing from what Arwin said. But so they were going based on the Earth curve calculator, which already presupposes a sphere.
We hadn't figured out the machinations they were using at the time. We didn't know yet that they were excluding perspective in the calculator, how that worked, what technically happened. We figured that out on the way, but before that, didn't really know what we were dealing with. We were just trying to disprove them.
Even after we figured it out, though,
because if you're looking at the calculator and assuming all the factors that made it are real, then you're honestly trying to figure it out. Then when you figured out they excluded perspective, voila.
No, there's more to it. Because even when we figured out that they assumed perspective, we still hadn't figured out that we were assuming our outcome in the first instance when using a curve calculator. In other words, it's already got an R value. So it's at the point where we're pummeling Mick West, it's maybe 6 months before Mick West turned up on the show, that we were, or let's use Anthony Riley, he's describing a double dip, or a double effect, I think he called it. And the double effect would be the effect of Earth curve coupled with the effect of angular size reduction. But when he made his demonstration of this double effect, his demonstration was inside view, right? So he's showing guy on the left, mountain on the right, and showing that it's dropped around Earth curve according to their maths, but also needs to have reduced in size, angular. So based on that, we term the calculator the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective exclusive curve calculator, meaning it didn't include perspective. But we still hadn't figured out that we were in Muppet vision, side view, and assuming our outcome. We hadn't got that far yet.
Yeah, got it. No, it makes sense now. But that's how they do it, right? It's everything is Muppet vision. Even the pictures I sent to you, now it just escapes me which ones they were, but they were in Muppet vision.
Yeah. So I got Ranty, when we figured that bit out, to go and dig out his old files of wind turbines with a comparable 90-degree side-on view. In other words, a comparison of what they give you in Muppet vision. So they're showing you the front-on view of the turbines going into the distance, but with linear descension, if that's the correct term. So they're going into the distance in a linear fashion. not curving. They're declining with perspective. But then when Ranty goes side on to them, they're all in a perfectly level line. But when they do the maths for what you see front on, with it cascading away and them claiming it's going around a curve, they put that view that's front on in side view. But when you actually take a picture in side view, it's all perfectly flat. So it's a way of taking out perspective. And I remember it very distinctly, like a eureka moment, getting on the phone to Ranty and going, "You've got to have a picture of these wind turbines side on." It's like, "I'll have a look." And then that was around the time that QE started in the conversation or in the debate. And he was like, "Yeah, this isn't excluding perspective, you realise. It's hijacking perspective. It's taking the effect of linear perspective and calling it Earth curve." And then you get Adam coming onto the scenes and breaking down the maths and going, "Look, these two are so close." But it's just taking the effect of perspective and calling it Earth curve in a side-on view. Muppet vision, orthographic representation with your own head represented in something that's being compared to a picture that you're taking. And you definitely can't see your own head in that picture.
It's a very clever mind trick because it's like showing a dead body. This is the best I could do on the spot here. Showing a dead body, and then it's not an actual dead body, but you show a dead body, and then you say everything about what you want to say about who committed the crime. And all the people are looking at is the imagery of a dead body. So you just go with the flow to believe whatever the narrative is attached to the picture of the dead body. So when they do the orthographic Muppet vision, it shows the Earth in the way they want you to observe it, so that no matter what they say, you accept that it's a sphere.
Yeah, as soon as you're into using the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, as a flat earther, you have already lost the argument, because that calculator only gives one outcome. It assumes the Earth is a sphere, and then you can manipulate it in whatever you like to get the picture that you've taken to match with a side-on representation with your own head in the frame, and the item you're taking a picture of not decreasing with distance. Well, that's just a hijacking of the effect of perspective. They've reverse engineered it and called it Earth curve, and claimed that the horizon is a physical sphere edge blocking things. Now, late stage of the argument 2020, we do not see the geometric horizon. We wouldn't expect to see the geometric horizon. The geometric horizon only exists in maths. Well, then it's not blocking boats and buildings with its physicality then, is it?
Ball game over.
Are we saying math doesn't refract? No.
Well, you can measure a geometric horizon with geometry, and it's based on its physicality and the distance from the physical edge to the centre. That would give you the radius derived by Al-Biruni. But to do that, you need a physical edge. And Earth doesn't have that. We're not on a sphere, so it doesn't have a geometric physical sphere edge horizon. We don't have one. But you can take a not physical position and say that it's that physical sphere edge horizon if you're assuming Earth's a sphere to begin with, as Al-Biruni did.
Yeah, the size of their globe is, their presupposed globe, is 24,900 miles circumference, with a radius of 3959, I'm sorry. So they're stuck. They've given us the numbers. So now when you put that into practice with geometry, that horizon distance at 1 foot high can be no further than 1.22 miles. And we can be out there all day long and see the horizon beyond 1.22 miles at a 1 foot observer height. So especially if you got an oil platform that's 6 miles out, it's going to be well in front of that, but it's behind it. So the only other times this would be impossible to spot with the naked eye is if it's really a foggy day and you can't see that far. Other than that, right there, geometry destroys their R value, all of their constellations, all of the distances to all the other so-called planets in this vacuum of space, which is false to begin with.
Exactly. The entire model collapses. It becomes untenable. If you don't have an R value, or the R value doesn't stack up in terms of its physical geometry, which it does not, the Black Swan has debunked it, then you don't have an R value to assume. The model collapses. Earth as a sphere is now untenable as a model.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So glad I was a part of it.
Yeah, it's downhill from now. We've got, the pseudoscientists, pretender clowns declaring how science doesn't prove things. Well, it's downhill from here. fundies who believe in the globe. All you can do from here is just make preparations, like Vsauce did. Cover your ass in whatever best way you think is necessary.
Exactly. Make your preparations.
Making preparations.
Comes to reap your shit. Yeah, buddy.
It's time to go back underground. Into the bunkers they go.
Well,
Just
they're
don't-
so butthurt, they're going to need preparation H.
I just don't see any way back, though. Do you? I don't see any turning back for the heliocentric model. There's no clawing it back and convincing us that refraction is geometry or anything like that. You know, it's broken now. It's snapped. It was being bent to the limits throughout 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. January 1st, 2020, it snapped. Black Swan snapped the model. So from this point on, I don't see any redemption for the globe. It is literally untenable from here on in. So what else can be the inevitable outcome? Well, it's downhill. Therefore, there's going to be a relinquishment of this model. I mean, unless you could get rid of all of the information about the Black Swan? Could you just get rid of that from public attention completely?
It says it all on my hat.
On your hat.
Game over.
I would dare say it snapped the wand in two.
Chocolate, you're thinking my thoughts.
No.
No, that's not what they need to get rid of. They need to get rid of all their previous statements that the Black Swan is using as evidence to destroy their model. So they got to get rid of Al-Biruni, they got to get rid of 3959, they got to get rid of all the other numbers that they've said this is what it is, all their distances to all the planets. All that has to be now quasi mixed up, kind of like, well, we're not sure, but we're close. But they never said that. They were sure. They had the numbers. Now they have to get rid of that scenario, and that's going to be tough.
I mean, at best, all we've done is prove the radius wrong. So
yeah, that was a failed attempt.
So when
they gotta
Mr.
get
Sensible
better.
said that, what he didn't appreciate was that at best, all you've done is debunk the radius of Earth, is to say that the fundamental foundation of the belief that Earth is a sphere has been debunked, leaving the model untenable. Well, while he might describe that as being at best debunking radius leaves the entire model untenable, which is why we repeat that particular quote so much.
Yeah, if he had any chance to rehearse for that one show, he would never have said that, because that was a death knell by their own side of their model.
Yeah, I'll never live that down.
Yeah,
certain
he's
things
not the
that
only
people
one
won't live
who
down.
said it.
So dumb.
So here it is on screen for anybody in the audience who's unaware of the Black Swan argument. This is how it stacks up. This particular picture was taken by BLMS B69 of Platform Habitat and Platform Hill House. The modus tollens logical consistency argument is as follows. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Now, the observer height in feet for this observation is 1 foot, putting a geometric sphere edge horizon at 1.22 miles. Now, 1.22 miles in this picture is off frame. Can't even see it so much further back than this picture. This is at full zoom on a P900. Now, Platform Habitat and Platform Hill House demarcate 6.5 and 9.7, I believe, miles, just under 10 miles to this second platform. And the horizon is beyond the second platform. Well, if the Earth is a radius of 3959, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. So 1.2 miles in this instance. And it's in excess of 10. Which means that the horizon is not a physical geometric sphere edge. And the rebuttal to this from the globe side is to say it's refracted. And as I went through with Kosho the other day, if the horizon is refracted, it is not geometric. And the geometric horizon is required for their geometric Earth curve model. So they no longer have a physical geometric sphere edge horizon to derive an R value from to give them a sphere Earth to beg the question with. All of their arguments start with the presupposition of the R value. And to acquire an R value, you need to geometrically derive it from a physical sphere edge horizon. And we've debunked it. This image debunks the notion that we have a physical sphere edge. So you can no longer derive geometry, you no longer have an R, you can no longer use that R with the begging the question fallacy that you have done to date. Outrageous that we should have to debunk a begging the question fallacy, but we do. You all automatically assume you're on a sphere, but we've left your begging the question fallacy of an R value untenable. You don't have physical geometry, and you must, to assert that you have physical geometry, proving you're on a sphere. Model left untenable. No R value, no geometric physical sphere edge horizon, no Earth curve, Earth flat.
Yeah, I remember that classic statement, if refracted, not geometric. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that on this little show of yours, that is barely a blip on the internet, we've taken down the greatest lie assaulted on mankind by man about the nature of this earth. We've just taken it down right there.
Yeah, as much as I hate blowing my own trumpet, Nathan is ace. Smash the super chat. Absolutely. Tip of the spear. You know, it's a collective effort. Massive shout out to Quantum Erator, as it was his modus tollens formulation that destroyed the R value and the geometric horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. So the assertion we have Earth curve is dead. That's why this particular proof rocketed to the #1 spot over and above how can you have gas pressure without a container? Natural law dictating that if the sky was a vacuum, the gas would fill it. Well, what a coincidence. Here's donkey dick geometry. This line that's being drawn from the observer's position, of course you're seeing the side of your own head, not that you get that in photographs, is drawn with this dotted line to point G. Well, that dotted line is what is required if you're going to measure physical geometry to give you this dotted line, which gives you the R value from the centre to the outside edge. Well, that's a geometric calculation. So to make this calculation, you need to be able to see this dotted line. And they tell us that we see this bent line. Well, this bent line here, the one they claim we see, this refracted line, you can't do geometry with that. Geometry requires something called a tangent. Tangent line is a straight line to a tangent point. The tangent point is Earth curve. And we cannot see the geometric horizon according to their own side. Globe Earth side of this argument says we can't see the tangent point. And it's that tangent point, Earth curve, that's supposed to block things in the distance. So it's game over. Earth curve is dead. The R value assumption is dead. Heliocentrism, as a result, as it's all based on R, is dead.
Dead indeed. And let's not forget BLMSB 69 and Ben a taboo conspiracy as well.
Right on. So the formulation of modus tollens came off the back of, obviously, the image being produced by BLMSB 69 and Taboo Conspiracy, Ben, producing a video detailing how if you calculate out their assumption, based on the mathematics detail that Al-Biruni used, 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, you'd end up with an Earth that was the same size as the claimed to be path of the moon around Earth. Vast sized Earth. Because that's what the mathematics gives you if you utilise a physical assumption that the horizon's a physical sphere edge. Preposterous. But then QE took that and said, well, no, this is capable of formulation into an absolutely devastating globe demolition. That's why we're left with an untenable model. This line on this particular diagram, the straight line, let's just get rid of Discord. This straight line is what's being drawn to the tangent point. Hence it's labelled location of geometric horizon. So you're going to need to see this straight line to measure it as Al-Biruni has claimed to do to give you a radius value to the centre. And if you can't see this line, and this line doesn't exist, and we wouldn't expect to see this line is the tangent that you need to do geometry. So the fact they're saying, oh, well, you see this donkey dick, this bent line. Well, that's not a tangent. You can't do geometry with that. You need a straight line. to do geometry, and that straight line needs to intersect a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that used to block things in the distance when looking at your world in side view and seeing your own head, and comparing that picture with the side of your own head in the image to something that you see when you take a photograph, and definitely don't have the side of your own head. You have something called perspective. But this view removes all aspects of perspective. Doesn't matter that if this was scaled up to the size of Earth, this would be about 6,000 miles away. But you can write on this line, or this bent line, 6,000 miles, and the fact that this oil rig's 100 foot tall, well, it'd still be 100 foot tall at 6,000 miles because there's no perspective included in orthographic view. That's why we call it Muppet vision. You're seeing the side of your own head and there's no perspective.
Yeah, it's just...
I want to point out something kind of funny. I'm sure, I don't know if everybody saw the 2016 debate with Quantum Eraser and Rumpus. And at some point, refraction came up. And Quantum Eraser asked him, what are the effects of refraction? And then, true to form, 4 years prior to 2020, and he still couldn't respond to that. Could not respond to it. As a matter of fact, he pulled up a video. And John was like, well, I'm asking you, what are the effects? He's like, well, I'll show you. He pulled up a video to show him some video where there's refraction going on in there. Where he's trying to get, what are the actual effects? What's your argument? And you can hear Rumpus just scrambling around. That was kind of funny because 4 years later, we're now asking them, what are the effects of refraction? And they still can't even talk about it coherently.
But there's a reason for that, though. The reason they do that is because they're going to exercise the bait and switch. They're going to talk in an educated way about atmospheric conditions that we will observe with our own two eyes. But at some point in the discussion, they're going to switch that with 7/6R terrestrial refraction, otherwise known as standard refraction. Well, standard refraction or terrestrial refraction, they're the same thing, are utilising the R value to bend light around the presupposed sphere Earth. So they must be slippery when it comes to detailing what refraction is in terms of the effect, because their effect of refraction is 7/6R, a presupposed radius bending light around a presupposed radius. On screen now, we've got Al Biruni's claimed methodology. And what do you know? He's got a straight line. That's a tangent. Do this physical geometric sphere edge at C, so he can get a 90-degree angle and derive R to the centre. So he's claimed to have physically measured the physical geometry of the physical sphere edge we're supposed to have. And yet 2020 comes around, we show a black swan, and they say, we do not see this geometric horizon. We would not expect to see this geometric horizon. This geometric horizon cannot be seen. This geometric horizon only exists in maths. And yet Al Biruni's claimed to have measured it and see it. No, he didn't. It's all a lie. You can't see it.
No, but Nathan, he came within 200 miles.
Of something that you can't see, can't measure, can't exist beyond the maths. No, he didn't.
Yeah. No, I know, but that's what they say. This is why it's so devastating. Biruni saw the horizon we all see on any given day, not actual location, depending on the weather and maybe some other things in the air. That's it. If he had gone there another day, it would have been closer. If he had gone there another day, it may have looked further. That's all he did. And then he put his presupposed globe into it and came up with this number. Now they're stuck to that number. And I'm happy they are, because it's untenable with that number.
Perfect end to the show. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out NathanOakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.